And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Breaks Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Bavon, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, it's been a little bit of some time off since you and I have been on the podcast. Of course, the last time we were live, that was when we were discussing the MLB All-Star break. But a month's time has passed, and now it is time for everyone's favorite time of the season. Football is back. Next week, we'll have college football returning. Technically, week 0 is this week, but nonetheless, we're going to have real college football next week. And then right around the corner is the NFL season, which we'll be talking about a little bit of that today, as we will be previewing this upcoming season's fantasy football year with some of our key rankings and looking into what players we're looking to draft, players we're looking to avoid this year, and of course, maybe some prizes at each valuable position, which being quarterback, running back, receiver, and of course, tight end.
Yeah, we're going to skip over defense and kicker, and we're going to actually put a vote for our fantasy league. We've had it running for about 10 years now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know, time flies. And we're going to put a vote to see if we want to get rid of defense and kickers this year. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to replace that with a flex because, defense and kickers can, make and break weeks. I mean, my whole vote with the whole defense is, you can't play defense in fantasy. So,
right.
If you want to draft defensive players, that's on you. But to draft the whole defense, I don't know about that. And same thing with kickers. You're doing great, then all of a sudden the kicker against you has 27 points, and congratulations, you lose the week.
Now, I'm not sure if you did this for yourself when you were making your list. I went back to what I did last season in terms of, what were my rankings last year. And I would say for the most part, I'm not too upset by what I did in terms of rankings, but there were a lot of hits and misses on my draft boards from players that I was looking for to drafting. Per example, obviously, what happened at running back with CMC and Brees Hall last year pretty much lost people leagues last year because of them either being hurt or just not being utilized enough during the season. And then, looking at tight end, that was another bad position last year. If you didn't get Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, you were pretty much in a rough spot at tight end last season. So the best thing, looking forward to this season is you want to make sure, obviously, those flex players and those skill position players are running back and receiver. There's a multitude and plentiful amount of players that are going to be there for you. But I feel like and you might agree or disagree with this, if you're not getting the top, I would say 5, maybe 6 in terms of quarterback and tight end, then you're kind of hitting a threshold where you're saying to yourself, okay, I need to make sure I, load up on these skill positions and running back and receiver. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble with my quarterback and tight end spot, because as someone that finished in last place in one of their leagues last year, that being me, quarterback was a very big position that I did not have, and I really regretted not taking it earlier on in the draft. So it probably will change my strategy for this upcoming season.
So I'm looking back at some of my picks here. My top 4 quarterbacks, I had Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow.
Yep, which is all good.
Those were great, right? I really hit, and I had Patrick Mahomes number 5. Actually, I was on my anti-Patrick Mahomes crusade last year, saying not to draft him, and I kind of feel vindicated.
However, you were right to do that.
This is my top 4 and 5 from last year. Running back, I had CMC, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan, Brees Hall, and Jahmyr Gibbs. That was my top 5 last year, which again I think is pretty solid there. I mean, Jonathan Taylor got banged up a little bit, but for the most part,
outside of Brees Hall and CMC, like I mentioned, it was fine.
CMC was the obvious one that obviously he got hurt, but 4 out of 5, not bad.
You take that.
Again, my number 1 wide receiver last year was Tyreek Hill, which unfortunately he got banged up.
Yeah.
But then Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, and AJ Brown, and then Puka Nacua right at number 6. So I feel like that was a solid list I had there.
I felt vindicated with Drake London. I was saying last year that was my sleeper pick going into the season. And Drake London, I think, was maybe a top 5. Yeah, I think he was a top 5.
Top 10. At least top 10.
Was he top 10? I have to look up again. But he was he was sensational last season.
I had Drake London at 14th last season.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the production he got. And with the way Michael Penix was playing with him down the stretch of the season, that's something to look forward to going into this upcoming season's rankings as well. But let's go. I want
to give my tight end too, because Mark Andrews was a disaster, obviously. However, Sam Laporta was number 1 for me last year, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, if you
I
didn't
had
get
Travis Kelsey, I had Evan Ingram, and David Njoku
yeah.
as my top five. But Trey McBride at six.
Yeah.
So like I feel like I did okay there. So like I feel like if you know, and I kind of said last year too, don't take tight end don't focus on them because I was a firm believer that if you don't get the top tight end, then
Yeah.
4 through
It's
seven is
just
gonna be all of it's 4 through 10 is really all the same thing.
it's pretty much the same scenario for this year. If you don't get Bowers or McBride, then you can wait on tight end for a little bit because the other ones are going to come off the board until maybe like round 5 or 6 at the highest, at the very highest. So that's where it comes down to. It's do you really want to focus on these quarterback and tight end that early, or are you going to do the normal strategy where you just load up on running back and receiver, and then you eventually wait for quarterback and tight end? I was usually of that notion. I might change up my draft strategy this year. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing yet.
Oh,
We
I'm
have our
changing up
first.
mine. I'm changing my picks. Yeah.
we,
Yeah, like
you
I'm
and I,
definitely I'm changing. Here's the thing: like I've gone 500 the last 2 years,
yeah,
but I've lost on tiebreakers, which is BS.
right.
So like I've gone 500, right? Which I'm not saying, oh yeah, I should make the playoffs, but like I don't know, like
No, it just sucks.
it just sucks because I'm lose because I have a spot for like 4 weeks, and then all my players end up getting injured each week. So like yeah, I end up like I think I was 7-4, and then I lost out, and I lost on a tiebreaker, which sucks. It's the second year in a row it's happened because no one can stay healthy.
Right.
So that's my. If anyone has a health risk, I'm not taking them this year. That's the advice
Right.
to me.
The people that I had in health risks, I had like somewhat I did last year. I put in the green territory, I would put the guys that I'm looking forward to drafting. Yellow territory is like, all right, I can live with that player. I'm not trying to draft them, but if they're there and I need someone, I'm gonna take them. And then I get into the later category where it's, if they're in the brown/red territory, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm trying to at all costs avoid these players. But if I'm really, really, really desperate, then I guess I have to take them. But I'm trying to avoid them at
Hey,
all
and the one
costs.
player I said not for me to take last year was Gabe Davis, and it paid off because I was not going to play that. I was not a member of that casino again.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to deal with that.
yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head who I was really trying to avoid last season. But I do have one that. Or I have a couple, but I have one in particular that I'm trying to avoid it probably at all costs this season in one of those skill petitions. But I guess let's start off with our rankings this year. Let's start off with our quarterback. I think you and I are probably going to have the same top five, if I had to guess. I don't know if you want to go into your top 10 because I think that's
I'll,
where.
I'll I'll stick top five, and I'll give you
Okay.
a sleeper. How about
Yeah.
this? Let's do top five. We'll give a sleeper, and
Okay.
we'll give one to avoid.
Okay. That's fine.
So I'm not saying like okay, if a guy to avoid is he's high on draft boards and just to avoid him. I'm not saying he's necessarily a bad player or whatever, but hey, he's going to be taken way too early. So
Right.
if you
Okay.
think this player, like for example, like last year with CMC, like last year CMC could be on your list to avoid because you believe he was going to be injured, and that was your justification. Then sure,
Right.
that's going to be great. And the sleeper could be it's going to be your QB5 or your running back 5. It could be the same guy, but like hey, like I think he's going to go fifth, or I think he's the fifth or fourth best quarterback.
Right.
He's still my sleeper though, like because it's your list at the end of the day. So
Right.
you can run
And,
anybody you want.
and I think again, I think you and I are probably going to agree on the top five. I don't think there's really much of a conversation unless there's maybe one other instance. I think you and I probably have the same five. I have Lamar, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, and Daniels. That's my top five.
Let me hear that again. So you had Lamar number one.
Lamar Jackson 1, Josh Allen 2, Joe Burrow 3, Jalen Hurts 4, Jane Daniels 5.
This is gonna pain me to say it. I think you have to avoid Jaden Daniels this year.
I'm not. I see. I'm not. I'm right with you. I think there could be a potential for a sophomore slump. I think it was more of the fact that I think they'll get a deal done with Terry McLaurin before the season starts, and as long as that happens, and he'll still be fine. Am I trying to draft him? I think that's one where I'm like, okay, you know what? If he's there, I'm taking him, no question. But I would rather have obviously one of the top four, and I might even consider looking at maybe even a guy like Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix because they had pretty good seasons last year.
No, they did. They absolutely did. So my top five is going to have Lamar number one, Josh Allen number two. I'm going to go Joe Burrow number three. It's very, very tough when you get to 4 or 5 here. I think by default, I'll put Daniels at 5. I'm going Daniels at 5 by default. And I think at the 4 slot, I think I have to have Hurts. I mean,
Yeah,
I
That's
think
not going.
after the
That's
season he
yeah.
just had, I just can't justify it. The sleeper I'm going to put is Justin Herbert, though. He's going to be a guy that's
Okay.
not going to be drafted very high, and I think he's going to have a bounce back season. It's going to be second year with the head coach. You're going to have second year McConkey. You're going to have improved weapons. So I think Herbert is the guy that could really improve here because he was so accurate last year, and he's going to have more weapons this year. So that's the
Okay.
guy I would go with. And the must avoid Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes
Yeah, that's fair.
until proven otherwise, you're gonna have guys in your league that are very casual. Depending on what kind of league you're in, if you have the casual guy in your league, so I'm gonna take Patrick Mahomes in the fifth round. You're gonna have guys like that. So that's my must avoid. He hasn't been performed like a top 10 fantasy quarterback the last 2 years, and I really don't believe he's going to perform like that for another year when the weapons aren't really improved. So and
Yeah,
mechanically, I don't even think he's top 10 because half the time, if the way his play style is, he's such a gunslinger. If it goes, there's so many plays where, oh my god, this goes the other way. It's just awful.
right.
Like this guy is probably 7 or 8 of those plays he made, all those no look, shuffle passes and stuff like that. If 7 or 8 of those go the wrong way, you're not talking like him like he's Patrick Mahomes. You're talking like he's Jameis Winston.
Right. Yeah, it's tough for me to think about what the quarterback I would say to avoid. I'm not saying I'm not trying to draft Mahomes. I think there's a case you could maybe want to draft him because you are going to get Worthy for a full year. Rashee Rice, as of now, hasn't been suspended, so you're going to at least have him for the start of the season. But you will have to monitor towards the end of the season.
He has to get a suspension.
He's more than likely going to get suspended. It just depends on how many games it's going to be. So that's where you have to proceed with caution with that. Hollywood Browns are an all right receiver they have as well. You don't know. I mean, Kelsey was the same thing as Mahomes last year.
He's
It's like
old.
right, like you had these guys were very highly touted going into the season, and then they just had a really bad year. So you're thinking maybe they get better this season after a year off, but we don't know. I guess that would probably be my quarterback to avoid. The only other quarterback I can think of, and at least in the top 10, would probably be Brock Purdy. Um, and I'm really looking at it because Ayuk's going to be out to start the season. You don't have Deebo Samuel anymore. You have CMC coming back off an injury. You're not sure what you're going to get out of him. And I guess Jawan Jennings right now is the lone guy you have. But even then, he's in a situation where he's playing for a contract right now. So you're not necessarily certain of what you're going to get out of him. You're right now throwing it to Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall until you get Ayuk back. So if we're gonna go top 10 wise, I think that would probably be my I'm trying to avoid Brock Purdy probably at all costs in terms of that. And then sleeper, I'm debating between two guys. I don't know if you're going to allow me to talk about the
Go
two
ahead.
guys. You'll be
Go
okay with
ahead.
one of them. The other one you will not be. The first one, I do think there's a potential Caleb Williams could maybe be something this season. Again, it all is contingent on what happens with Ben Johnson in that offense because we've seen what he's done with Detroit. So the potential is there for him to be an upside quarterback as a backup option. If you have someone at the beginning of your draft, then you're saying to yourself, all right, let me grab Caleb Williams because look at what happened for a lot of people last year with Jaden Daniels.
That
They
was I was
probably
one of them. I
right,
drafted him in the 11th round.
right. You grab Jaden Daniels at the end of the draft because you're saying to yourself, there's some potential here, so I might as well grab him. And he turned out to be league winners for a lot of people. So I think that could be Caleb Williams this year. You're going to bring in an offensive guru in Ben Johnson. You still have a very good offense at helm, and I like some of the playmakers that they have. They added Colston Loveland from Michigan at tight end in the draft. You're bringing back Odunze. You're bringing back DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift. The offensive line is one of the more improved offensive lines, at least what they did in the offseason as well. So you and I have talked about it. It's a make or break year for Caleb, regardless. I think if everything goes right, then this could be a fantasy league type winning year for someone if they maybe grab Caleb Williams if everything goes right. Now, if it goes wrong, then yeah, it's tough. That's why I'm not saying draft him as your starting quarterback. I would say if you're looking for a stash type of quarterback as your backup, that if everything goes wrong for you, you're at least starter. Like let's say if you grab Patrick Mahomes, for example, then at least you have Caleb Williams and everything goes right. You're in a perfect good spot. The other guy I'm looking at, Johnson, it's your guy, Drake May. I am really high on Drake May
No
this season.
thanks. Don't
I know
put that evil on me.
I know you're not a big Drake May guy. You weren't going into the draft, but I think Drake May could be pretty good this season. I like.
I hope you're right. I hope you listen. I don't want you to mush him, but I hope you just
yeah.
prove me wrong.
I like, adding Travion Henderson in the draft. I think a lot of people are buying in the hype at him being at a running back with him and Ramondre Stevenson. You're bringing in Stephon Diggs as well, adding to that wide receiving core that they already have. Hunter Henry's not a bad tight end as well. I think May is another guy where I'm not obviously not saying start him. That's someone where he has the rushing ability as well as throwing the football. It could be a backup option where if you need to start him for a week or a couple weeks, then you could say, you know what, I can live with this. I think Drake May's got the upside as well as Caleb Williams, obviously them being the same draft class too, but I think they both have upside for this upcoming season.
All right, and that you want to go into the running backs now?
Yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my top five running backs, I'm gonna have
Okay.
Bijan, Jameer Gibbs, Saquon, CMC, and Jonathan Taylor. That's my top five right there.
Okay.
You may be thinking, oh, what about Genty? What about Devon Kane? Injuries and rookie. I want to say if you want to maybe draft Genty, not as like your top five guy, but let's say your pick 7 or 8, I would totally say that's fine. But
Yeah.
I just wouldn't take him. I mean,
It's
it's
a
just the
very
Raiders
risky
O
first
line
round
is
pick.
just so bad.
It's a
He's
very
one
risky
of the
pick.
most talented running backs in college we've ever seen, but it's just a bad situation right now for that O line. Do you want to give your top five?
Yeah, my top five is pretty much the same. It's Bijan Robinson, Jameer Gibbs. I still have Saquon Barkley there. Crazy enough, I still have Christian McCaffrey in that top five at number 4. I think obviously we've seen him come back from injury before, and he's has worked out. So I think that's fine. And then I have Devon Achane as my number 5 running back. I was tossing between him and Jonathan Taylor. I went with Achane just because of the pass catching ability, because I feel like Tua is going to be dumping the ball off a little bit more this upcoming season. Their offense doesn't look as appetizing as it was last season, where you had obviously Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and the offensive line wasn't bad. You also had Jonnu Smith, and now no Jonnu Smith. Your tight ends now is Darren Waller. Your offensive line has gotten a little bit worse as well. And Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have been battling injuries the last 2 seasons. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for Achan to at least break out. Now, like you mentioned earlier, there are injury concerns. So that's something to proceed with caution as well. But if he's fully healthy, I think he could easily be a top 5 running back for this upcoming season. But like you mentioned with Genty also, Genty for me, I wanted to put him early, like a little bit higher than what I currently have him ranked. I have him ranked as my 10th best running back going into the season. I have a couple guys higher than him. I have Jonathan Taylor higher than him, Derrick Henry, Bucky Irving, and Chase Brown. I
Yeah,
I, I would I try. It's just guys that I know right now,
you actually just
and
mentioned two. I'm gonna go with two sleepers actually: Chase Brown, Bucky Irving. Those are my sleepers because those are guys that with they're hot, they're
they were
young,
they were
high
great last
upside.
year.
Yeah, they had strong end of campaign seasons last year after not really being the emergent back at the beginning of the year, and they're gonna be on teams with high powered offenses, the Bengals and the Bucks.
Yeah,
And you mentioned Derrick Henry. Unfortunately, he's my must avoid this year.
really.
I think that age is finally catching up with Derrick Henry.
Okay.
He's kind of been the ageless wonder for the last couple of years. Now, don't get me wrong. I think he's still going to have 12, 1,300 yards. Don't get me wrong. But is he going to have another year where he has, 2,000 rushing yards? No. I think he'll have 10 touchdowns, 1,300 yards maybe. So he's still going to be an elite option, but he's not going to be in that, offensive play of the year running, give the running back MVP. He's not going to have those kind of conversations because he's
Yeah.
on the other side of 30 now. He's been
Well,
this is like his 8th or 9th year in the league now, so he's got a lot of mileage on him. He's going to
uh,
be good, but I'm not going to take him in my top 8 or 9.
I'll tell you what. This position was probably the easiest for me for my most avoided player, because for me it's Kenneth Walker from Seattle. And
It's such a love hate relationship with him too.
right, because when healthy, he is a very solid running back. But that's the problem. He hasn't been healthy in God knows how long.
Two
And
seasons.
let's also remember they also have a good backup running back in Zach Charbonnet. So if Walker is out for an extended period of time, let's say Charbonnet goes off, does Seattle just consider let's just keep rolling with Charbonnet until further notice? There's a good possibility that could happen. So I'm trying to avoid Walker, and that's like a last case scenario for me, but I'm trying to avoid him at all costs right now just because of the injuries. And the obvious concern with their backup running back being
And
Charbonnet.
If Alvin Kamara is there for you at like as a running back at
I'd rather
11 or
have a
12,
Camaro.
I wouldn't take him either. I wouldn't take Kamara at 11 or 12 because we
I'll
just don't
tell
know
you.
what the hell's going on over
I
there.
tell you why I take him, because they gotta throw the ball to somebody. Someone's got to do something on that offense,
That's true.
and I think
That's
that's.
true.
I think Kamara is going to just get a bunch of touches because Olave hasn't done it for you in God knows how long. Kamara is going to get a lot of touches this season. If he stays healthy, he should still be a good running back. I'm not saying he's going to be top 10. I have him ranked, I think, 14 out of my ranking, so it's not a high ranking. But if he's there for me, I'll take him. I have no problem doing it. If I had a sleeper, I would probably go. I'd probably go Tony Pollard from Tennessee. Pollard was pretty good last year when a Titans offense that was pretty much not to be desirable whatsoever. But you have a young rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. I think they're going to try to avoid putting a lot of, try to make sure that there's no pressure on him to succeed as much as he needs to do early on. I think just go the course of action throughout the entire season, make sure everything goes fine. I think Paulo will be good enough to maybe be a RB2 or 3, or maybe a solid flex option for you. He's ranked, I think, 24 on ESPN in terms of rankings. Could be a nice, stash pick for you. That if you want to use him as a flex option, that's a perfect option for you to have. He's a really good pass catching back. Can also run the ball a lot, and their backup running back Tajay Spears is currently injured right now. So Pollard's going to have a lot of production probably to start the early season. We'll see how it goes throughout the entirety of the season, but I'm sure Pollard's still going to be producing at a nice high volume as long as everything goes well. I think Pollard could be a good sleeper for everyone this year.
And let's talk wide receivers. You want me to give you my top five?
Yeah, go for it.
My top five in order. It's going to be Jamar Chase this year. He lit up
Has to
fantasy
be
last
Chase.
year.
Has to be Chase.
1,700 receiving yards, 17 touchdowns, just over 400 points in fantasy. So on a PPR basis, just absolutely phenomenal. And talking about PPR, let's talk about the next guy here, which I think is going to have a big, big year. Puka Nakua, after having some health issues last year,
Ooh,
I think he'll break 1,500 yards.
wow. Puka, you
Because
got Puka number 2?
I have Puka number two. I have Puka number
Okay.
two, and I've got CD number 3, and I've got Justin Jefferson number 4.
Okay.
And then number 5 is very, very hard, but I'm gonna go with Nico Collins. I think that
Okay.
Stroud's gonna have a comeback season after that sophomore slump, and I think Nico Collins is gonna emerge as that breakout player, getting 100 receptions and maybe 1,400 yards.
I don't hate the Puka Nakua pick because they just added Devontae Adams. So
It's
that's
gonna be
good.
very dynamic. It's gonna take a lot of
Right.
pressure off him.
I think the only concern is just monitoring Matthew Stafford's injury right now. He's
Yep.
practicing again today, which is a good sign. If you have Garoppolo, that might be a little bit of an issue to start the season, but once Stafford comes back, Puka could easily go off for the numbers that you just mentioned. Like, it's a very good possibility that could happen. So I don't hate that pick. I like Puka Nakua, potentially being that type of guy. Do you have a sleeper and a guy to avoid? I'm assuming also.
You're not gonna like me, but my guy to avoid is Malik Neighbors because we don't know what the
Hmm.
hell is going on in New York.
Well, we
We
didn't
don't
know what
know
was
if it's
going
going
on
to
in
be
New York
Russell Wilson
last
for
year.
7 games. We
Yeah,
don't. Yeah, but I don't know. But because it's just going to be very like how many hits can Russell Wilson take with that O line? Like then
I
you're going to
know.
maybe throw in Jameis Winston, which on
Yeah,
any given listen, there'll be games where Malik Neighbors he's going to have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I'm going to look like an idiot. And he's going to have games where he has 2 receptions on 9 attempts, and he's going to have 42 yards. Like he's going to have games like that.
right.
So he's definitely going to be really volatile. And if you're not going to put up with the volatility, I would steer clear of him. The sleeper, however, is going to be dependent on this team. And I said it before with Herbert, Lad McConkey, because Lad McConkey isn't in the top 10 in pretty much any board out there. And he's probably going
Yeah,
to be available as a third or maybe even early fourth round pick in a lot of drafts. So it's going to be very possible
yeah.
you can get Vlad McConkey maybe like 31 or 32 in a lot of drafts. So I would, kind of put my eggs in that basket because I think him and Herb are going to be really nice this year.
Yeah, I mean, they were great last year. It was a nice 1-2 punch they had. And maybe, I mean, I don't know if Keenan Allen's going to do much, but that could somewhat help you, maybe, if you're the Chargers. At least you're hoping that if you're a McConkey owner, you're hoping that Keenan Allen could take some targets away
He
or
can't
could
be
take some
worse than
pressure.
Stonehands.
But yeah, and he got hurt his last game too. Stonehands. Speaking of
Yep.
him, um, my five, I have Chase number one. I think that's he's got to be the 101 pick. What if you have the number one overall pick in the entire board? Whether you're a 10 team or a 12 team, Chase has to be number one right now. I think it's just the most safe pick right now. You have every option. I have CeeDee Lamb number two. I still have Justin Jefferson three, despite me not being a big JJ McCarthy guy. I still think Jefferson, no matter what quarterback he has, is still going to be doing great things. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown number four, and I still have Malik Neighbors in my top five. I know there's still concern over what the Giants quarterback issues are this season. I just look at it like this. If he can have a great season last year with guys like Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock, they got an upgrade at each quarterback they have this season. I think, in my opinion, Dart's better than DeVito, Winston is better than Lock, and obviously Russell Wilson's better than Daniel Jones. So, in my opinion, no matter who's going to be starting for the Giants this year, Neighbors is going to do better. The only reason he wouldn't do better, that could tie into your point, is injuries, because he's had injuries right now so far in training camp. So that's the only concern. If you're trying to maybe avoid him, that would be the reason you would avoid him, because he's currently got injuries going on right now. So he hasn't really played this much in the preseason as well as practice. So that's why that's where I could see your argument for that. In terms of sleeper and a player I'm avoiding, I would say for me, sleeper wise, it pains me to do this because of what happened with this guy last season. But I'll say this: if Tyreek Hill stays healthy, we saw what we were talking about this guy being the number one overall pick last year in fantasy drafts. If you can get him in the third, fourth round, depending on how people feel about him, and he goes back to the old Tyreek Hill, you might win your fantasy league because of that. It's crazy to think that's a sleeper pick, but I think that's very realistic
No,
chance.
it's realistic because
Um,
I agree with it as being a sleeper pick because he's not the top 10 on pretty much any draft. He's like right there flat. He's probably going to
right.
be pick 13 or 14 for the wide receivers. So
Him and I'm looking at him and a little bit of a true sleeper and Marvin Harrison Jr. being my two guys I'm looking into, because I think the Cardinals are in a position where that coaching staff needs to get him involved a lot more in the offense, because we saw him have that breakout game last week. I think it was in week 2 or week 3, and then they just didn't use him as we were hoping for the rest of the year, the majority of this season. If they utilize him to what we saw in college, Marvin Harrison Jr. could be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. I don't think there's anyone that could really disagree with it, because he has the talent. We know the talent is there. The Cardinals need to utilize him more. I think that's the only reason why he's not as high at boards right now, because that we just don't know what the Cardinals are doing with him. It's kind of like what we were thinking about with Bijan Robinson a couple of years ago. You know the talent's there, but he's not being utilized the correct way, so not everyone's trying to jump on board and draft him in their drafts. I think if everything goes right, Marvin Harrison could, in my opinion, be a potential top 10 fantasy wide receiver for the upcoming season if the Cardinals use him right. But I'll go with Tyreek Hill as my sleeper pick regardless.
all
The
right,
player I'm trying to avoid, I'll make it quick. I I'm going to say it's tough because I'm between a couple guys. If I had to pick, and I do kind of like him, but I'll go with DK Metcalf on Pittsburgh, because he's the number one option, but I don't know what the Steelers' offense is going to look like this season. Rodgers is at the helm. After DK, there's not much other receivers on that team. So is DK gonna do good because of that, or is he just gonna get double covered and he's not gonna be showing up in a lot of fantasy drafts in terms of production? So that probably be my one guy I probably would avoid. It's obviously he's not a high pick as compared to the other receivers. He's around 21, 22 in terms of rankings and receiver, but it just shows how good the receiving class is for me, because I have like 15, 20 guys where I'm like, I'd be ecstatic if I got them as my, number one or number two or whatever receiver, or even as a flex option. Like I'd be perfectly content with it. I think that's just how good the receiving core and even the running back core too. Like there's a lot of good skill makers and skill players in this upcoming draft this year.
And let's go talk about tight ends now. Again, we're gonna skip defense and kickers like we mentioned before. So this will be the final position we're going over. And my five, I'm going with Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, which are really 1A, 1B. You can't go wrong with
Yeah,
either of those guys. It's going to be your personal preference, whether you believe in the Raiders or the Cardinals more
it's
this season.
after those two where it starts. You start wondering. That's where you start trying to figure it
And
out.
I would put Kittle in a league when he's healthy above these next
Yes,
two guys and everyone else. So I'd go Kittle and then I'd go Laporta, Hawkinson. So it's really
that's
1A,
exactly what I have.
1B. Then it's Kittle, and then it's Laporta, Hawkinson, 4A, 4B.
Yep, that's exactly what I have. Zach's
Oh,
is
okay,
literally the
one
exact
through
same
five
five in that
exactly.
order. Yep,
So my sleeper is a guy I've mentioned the last couple of years, and he's finally
I
getting a little bit
know
more respect this year. It's David Njoku.
it's David Njoku.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
Flacco's the
same
quarterback
same
now. He's
same guy every single year. You mentioned that Flacco was named the starter today, and he's the tight end has always been Flacco's safety blanket. And despite all the Browns QB problems, it doesn't really matter. He's always finished top 10 the last 3 seasons. So
yeah.
like you're drafting a tight end one right here, and
All
you're
right.
probably able to get him as tight end 7 or 8. Now, the guy I would avoid is Travis Kelsey, and this is why.
Mm. Okay.
Travis Kelsey had 195 fantasy points last year. David Njoku finished with 148. So, Travis Kelsey was taken so high last year, right? You know, first,
Yep.
second round last year. David Njoku, you got him in like the 12th or 13th round. Well, it was a difference of, on average, 3 points per game. So, if you drafted Travis Kelsey that high up, you got an extra 3 points per game, which you probably left better running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks on the board. So is it worth drafting a tight end that high? No. That's what it always going to boil down to. Unless you get the
If
unquestioned guy,
if you're getting
it's
Bowers and
not worth it.
McBride, it's worth it. If you're not getting those two, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So don't panic pick if you had if Bowers and Trey McBride are gone by like let's say round 3. It's like, oh, I got a panic pick and I take Sam Laporte. Don't do that.
Yeah, no, definitely don't do
Because
that.
at that point, you Sam Laporta, another guy, 174 points last year, highly touted tight end. David Njoku, 146. You
Right.
could have got a guy like Tucker Kraft last year. He got more
Mm-hmm.
production or as much production as Sam Laporta. So there's going to be options here. Don't worry. There's going to be tons of options because the drop off it does not justify it. Hunter Henry last year had as much production or had more production than guys like TJ Hawkins who got injured and barely had less production than someone like Sam Laporta who wasn't even close to being drafted. So
And Laporta
there's
was
going to be
also hurt
options
too.
there. Yeah, there's going to be options here at tight end. So don't get it twisted.
I think for me, obviously we had the same five, so I don't need to go it over. I think for obviously if you get Bowers, I mean, think of what Bowers did last season with the bad quarterback room, and now you're adding. I'm not a big Geno Smith guy either, but Geno Smith is a significant upgrade to what they had last season. So you're going to add Geno to that offense with Bowers as your tight end. That's a home run if you get Bowers early in the draft. And you're hoping McBride gets more than 2 touchdowns. He had the volume, just no touchdowns. That's the only concern with him. I think I'm with you on the tight ends who I'm avoiding are probably Kelsey and also Mark Andrews. I don't need to explain more about Mark Andrews for me. You know personally how bad that was a pick for me because I took him. I was in that
Oh
spot
man,
last year.
I
What you just
I
mentioned
want to take
earlier.
one more. I want to take one more victory lap by the way.
Yeah.
One of the guys I mentioned, he was my 7th ranked tight end last year was Pat Fryermuth. He
Yes.
finished with 170 fantasy points, and Travis Kelsey finished with 195.
Yeah.
So again, do not panic.
And remember,
Tight ends available.
they just got another tight end in Jonnu Smith. Like that's how crazy the position is right now.
Yep.
So I'm trying to avoid Kelsey and Andrews. Again, that's like you know what if there's nothing skill player wise there, I guess I'll just take them, but I'm not trying to take them because last year they just pretty much are the reason why I lost in one league. I took Mark Andrews I think in the 6th round or something, and yeah, that just ruined everything in that draft for me. Um, I think my sleeper, I kind of mentioned him earlier, and it kind of ties into what we've seen from tight ends the last 2 seasons for what we've seen the number one tight end be, which is a rookie tight end. Bowers last season, Laporta 2 years ago. as I mentioned earlier with Caleb Williams, if everything goes right, I think Colson Loveland could be a really, really sneaky top five option
No,
for the
no
tight end
Tyler
this season.
Warren with Anthony Richardson
Not with that
and
quarterback
Danny
room.
Dimes. No,
I
come on.
I wanted you know for this for a fact. I
I
think I
know you
mentioned
wanted
this.
him badly.
I wanted him to be no, not even for me wise. I wanted him on the Bears for that exact reason. If you added him to that offense, I think that would have been great. Not that Loveland's bad. I just think Warren was a better pass catcher. But I think Loveland could really do some work with this offense if everything goes according to plan and he's used exactly how Laporta was used just 2 years ago, and he was the number one fantasy tight end in all of football. So we see it the last 2 seasons with tight ends being a rookie tight end, being the number one ranked tight end in fantasy production. Loveland's got a shot because if you got all those playmakers, not all the targets are going to go to those playmakers all the time. Guys like Odunze and DJ Moore, Loveland could definitely get a bulk of of workload in that offense, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of design plays from Ben Johnson for a guy like Loveland because you don't take a tight end in the top 10 and say to yourself, well, we're just going to use this guy as a blocking tight end. I'm looking at you, Kyle Pitts. We're not going to use this guy as a blocking tight end. We're going to use this guy as a pass catching threat that is going to help our offense be a top 10, top 5 offense in the league this upcoming season. So Colson Loveland's my sleeper pick for this position. And maybe even Evan Ingram, too, could be in that conversation as well. I like him with Bo Nix. I think that's a good combo.
Evan Ingram. Don't let Brian hear you.
Hey, listen, he was not that great with the Giants, but I gotta give him props. He was great with Jacksonville, and I think he could be really good with Denver. I think it's a great fit for the Broncos. But I'm sure you were expecting me to say Kyle Pitts is my sleeper.
Kyle Pitts, as a reminder, you know, finished with 131 points last year.
He's
Just
gotta
gonna
break
throw it out
out.
there.
It's gonna happen eventually when no one is expecting it. I know it's gonna
And
happen.
this is finally the year because he's getting beamed into oblivion, so it's
I
probably
know.
gonna happen this year.
Oh, do you? Yeah, you don't gotta tell me. You've been sending me memes on all social media about Kyle Pitts the last couple of weeks, trying to go me in.
You should know he's your pick round one.
If I have pick number one again, I might trade
You're
it
gonna take Kyle
because
Pitts.
no, I'm gonna probably trade it because I don't want to pick number one again after what CMC did to me last season. I still have some very bad nightmares about that. But yeah, that's our rankings for this upcoming 2025 season. And John, as I mentioned, it's the start of the new upcoming calendar year for you and I here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I think what is this, year 4 now that we're coming
Year
up
four.
on?
Entering year 4.
Yeah, year 4 we're coming up on. This is where we started our show during the before the football season started. And as I mentioned, next week we will be previewing the college football season. Week 1 is just around the corner. 7 games we have on our docket, Johnson, that you and I are going to be looking forward to going into week 1. But of course, before we get into those slated games, we're going to be making our selections for the top Power 4 conferences in college football. And of course, making our picks for the 12-team college football playoff year 2 for that. And then after that, we're right back here for the NFL. We're going to be previewing the NFL upcoming season, giving our picks for each division winner, who will make the Super Bowl, and who will ultimately come out as the Super Bowl champion. So we'll see what our selections will be in the next couple of weeks. But it's time to get back into the nick of things, Johnson, because we've had a lot of time off these last couple of weeks. Bachelor parties, some birthday parties as well. Now it's time to get back into the groove of things. Any final
Yep,
words?
it's time. Hopefully I finish better than 7-7 this year.
Hopefully I don't have to wear a toilet seat next year again because I have to wear it this year. It's going to be a bad visual. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I lost my word there for a second. Hopefully everyone is going to win their fantasy football leagues this upcoming season, and we'll see if maybe our picks for this upcoming year in terms of rankings do help some of you win your respective fantasy football league championships. A couple of big rankings, some sleeper picks, and players to avoid. Hopefully you listen to our advice. If not, we don't blame you whatsoever. But hopefully everyone is able to win their fantasy leagues at the end of the year. But as I mentioned, next week we'll be back here on the show with our college football preview for the 2025-2026 season. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by my co-host Andrew Johnson. for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.